Hi, and welcome to another edition of Plastic Models by a Regular Dude. Today is the inaugural episode of my new series, Plastic Models for Beginners. Mentioned it on one of my videos a few videos back. I wanted to do something like this, and this is the first episode. So in this first episode, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I plan to do with the channel, and then we're going to jump right in with basic tools and supplies to build models. My goal with this this series is to help beginners with the basics and then move up from there. So I want to say first and foremost that the stuff that I present here, it's not the only way, it's not the best way, it's just the way I do things, and it works for me, and hopefully it'll work for you. And you may hear me mention the 10 by 10 rule. That's what I've come up with to explain the fact that if you ask 10 different people the same questions, or the same question, you'll likely get 10 different answers, because there's tons of different ways to do things. And so again, my way isn't the right way or the only way, it's just the way I do it, it's the way it works, and hopefully you can use my suggestions and my techniques and improve on them, tweak them, whatever, to build up your own modeling style. My plan for the series is this video here will deal with the introduction and basic tools and supplies. My second video will be the first kit that I'm going to build to show these basic techniques. The third video I will talk about paint, the different kinds of paints, paint brushes, stuff like that. And then video 4, I'll actually start painting the kit and do the decals. Then video 5 will be some basic weathering techniques. Now I may squeeze another video in there, as I think about it. I may think of a technique or something that might be helpful to have, and I'll squeeze that in, if necessary, and if it warrants a video of its own. If not, it'll just be part of one of the videos. So that will finish up the first kit. Videos 1 through 5 take care of construction, paint, painting the kit, decals, and then some basic weathering, and that will be the end of the first series of the overall series, Plastic Models for Beginners. And then from that point we'll move on to something else. So without further ado, let's go ahead and I'm going to change camera positions, and I'll talk a little bit about the basic tools and supplies that I feel a person needs to actually complete his or her first kit. So let's change the camera angle and we'll go over that stuff. Alright, so the first tool, and it's a pretty important tool, is a hobby knife. This one here is an X-Acto number 1 with a number 11 blade, and this is a pretty common configuration that you will see people use, and it is readily available just about anywhere. You can buy them in hardware stores, craft stores, hobby stores, all kinds of places you can find these. They're inexpensive and they work well. Really super easy to find extra blades, and when shopping for one of these, it might be a good idea to get a multi-pack of blades, because you want to keep some sharp blades on hand at all times. Now they come in 5 packs. They come in a big, like, I don't know if it's a 50 pack or whatever, with a disposal area for used blades, but it's good to have a nice sharp blade at all times. So item number 1, hobby knife. The next one is a sprue cutter, And this particular sprue cutter is a Xuron, Xuron. These are also readily available. Either Xuron or Testers also makes one that looks an awful lot like this one. There's black handles and orange handles. They're both pretty much the same. As you can see, the orange handle one has a little bit finer, sharp, pointier tip. It helps, but not necessary. But it is a good item to have because the regular like wire cutter type affairs that you can find in hardware stores, the blades aren't as fine as these, and it ends up mashing through the plastic rather than cutting the plastic. So a sprue cutter, doesn't matter the brand, but a dedicated hobby sprue cutter is best. Then we have tweezers. This tweezer here is actually Tamiya brand, but brand doesn't really matter as much as making sure that you have a nice sharp tip, and that whenever you close them, they're closed on the end and they're not all splayed out. So a nice even tip. Now these are smooth. There's also types that have serrations, little ridges in there to supposedly help grab the plastic. I have had both and I haven't found the little teeth necessary. As long as it's a good flat tweezer, you'll get by fine. And there's also types that have an angled end on them. Those are also handy, and you know, might be something to get in the future. And I'll talk about that in one of my videos when I talk about secondary tools. Next item are sanding sticks, such as these and these. Now there are hobby branded sanding sticks, and I'm sure that you won't find any hobby branding called Tropical Shine. These I actually picked up some of them at a beauty supply for very cheap. I also picked some up at a pharmacy, drugstore, whatever you want to call it. You can even get them at Walmart or any other place that carries cosmetics and cosmetic supplies. The reason I got these is they're good. You know, there's 400 and 600 grit on this particular one. This one has 4 different grits on it. This one's just coarse on both sides for doing heavy stuff. And then this is just a larger one with the 400 and 600. But the reason I got these instead of actually getting dedicated hobby branded sanding sticks is these are much cheaper. And the nice thing is, and with the hobby brands as well, as you can see, there's, you know, plastic stuck in here. You can take these and just an old toothbrush, put them under running water, and you can scrub them off and they're good to go again. But they're inexpensive to replace, so get a few of them, some different grits. Now this one is actually a hobby branded, a hobby specific sanding stick. It's rough on one side, a little bit smoother on the other, and it's real skinny. You can buy a package of them. They're fairly inexpensive. Again, you know, this stuff can be bought at pretty much any hobby store or craft store, and or online. And these are nice because you can get into tight spaces, and they work really well for sanding off the little remaining plastic from when you cut apart from the plastic sprue that the parts are attached to. So that's another one. Those are very handy to have in that small size. So as far as supplies go, you're going to need cement. What I use is Tamiya Extra Thin and Testers Liquid Cement. Okay, these are they. Now, the reason I have 2 different kinds, and you can use whatever type of glue you want. There's Revell, which is similar to this one. There's other Tamiya, you know, there's other brands. There's Testers Liquid, Thin Liquid. I use these because I find that this covers most of my needs. The Extra Thin is, like it says, Extra Thin. It's like water. It has a brush built into the cap, an applicator brush. And it's nice for gluing parts together because you can put the parts together and you just touch the cement loaded applicator tip brush to the seam, and capillary action will pull it through the two parts of plastic being joined together, and gives you a nice solid weld between the two pieces of plastic, and it sets very quickly, so you don't have to wait for it to dry to continue on with your building. The Model Master liquid cement here, which I believe is similar to the Revell brand liquid cement in consistency, it's a little bit thicker and slower drying than the extra thin. And where that comes in handy is if you're putting a part in place and you might have to reposition a little bit to get it lined up correctly or whatever. This gives you a little bit of time to do that. But once it cures, it's just as strong as anything else. And it has this handy applicator tip, so you can get the cement right where you need it without a bunch of it coming out. Now, Testors also makes a tube type glue. It's a tube probably about this long, about 6 inches long, maybe 5 inches long, and it's orange and white, and it is goopy and thick, and I would definitely not recommend using that unless that is the absolute only thing you could get. But just be prepared to have problems. It's stringy, it's thick, it's hard to control it because it's thick, and it can just be a real mess. So I would definitely go with any decent liquid cement that's made for styrene plastic. The last supply item I'm going to recommend, and it's not really totally necessary, especially depending on the type of kit you build, is tape. And the reason I say tape is almost everybody has some kind of tape around the house. This is painter's tape, which is similar to regular masking tape, that kind of off-white masking tape. It just doesn't stick quite as strongly, so there's less chance that if you're taping over paint, there's less chance of pulling paint up. That'll come later. It's not really necessary, especially on the first kit that I'm going to be building, but if you've got it around the house, it's good to have. There are also hobby specific tapes, and I don't always recommend or think that a person should have to buy hobby specific tapes, but Tamiya makes a nice, I said Tamiya earlier, it should be Tamiya I believe, but anyway, different widths of tape, and this is the same way, this is the same thing. It's made for models, so it's sticky but without being too sticky, and it's nice because it comes in different widths, but not totally necessary. You can cut this into strips and shapes and whatever you need with your hobby knife. So that, in my opinion, is the bare minimum that a person needs to get started with building a model kit. With these items I've shown you, you can cut the parts off, clean the parts up, and assemble the parts into a model. So with that, I think I'm going to call it quits on this video, because that kind of gives you an idea of what I have planned for the channel and the items you need to get started with a kit. So stay tuned, because real soon I'll be posting the next video, which will be introducing the first kit I have chosen for this series, and I'll talk a little bit about the kit and go over the typical contents of a kit box, what you can expect and what to look for, and then we can get cracking and start building the kit. So another thing I want to mention real quick before I close this off is I want this to be an interactive channel. So if you have any questions or comments, please post them down below. Suggestions, anything, post them down below. And this version of videos, this series of videos, is going to take precedent over my other videos as far as responses to questions and comments, because I want it to be interactive. So if you have questions on anything that you're doing, maybe I can help, so you're not stuck and hanging around waiting for an answer somewhere. And again, you can look up stuff on the internet. It's not like I'm going to have the ultimate answers, but I want it to be interactive. So please feel free to comment or ask questions below. So with that, thank you for joining Plastic Models by a Regular Dude, and the first in our series of plastic models for beginners. And I will see you all next time on Plastic Models by a Regular Dude.